As the attacker receives the ball here, can the defender now work on challenging to win the ball when a striker has got their back to them? So can they work out using their upper body to try and battle for the ball, making sure that they leave enough space behind to defend, try to regain the ball and then attack?
Hi, my name is Nimesh Patel and I'm a Coach Development Officer in the East region. This is a session on challenging for the ball to try and win the ball back, and the key focus here is to try and read and react. This session will help players to understand how to actually win the ball back, and once they've won it, what to do with it. We want to challenge our players that not just only tackling for the ball, but to try and keep it, to try and start a counter-attack. So this session has got 3 parts to it, and I'm going to go through the setup on the board here. So initially we would start with just a small area. This could be anywhere on your training facility, and you can vary the distance of the gates. So as you notice here, you've got a 1v1 here, a 1v1 here, and you could have more of these stations situated around your training area. This would be classed as an arrival activity or something you would do initially to get the players into the mind frame of getting ready to challenge for the ball. The way that this practice would start would be the ball in the player's hands, and they would pass the ball in the hand as a chest pass to the opposition player. And as they've done that, that player has then got to try and move towards the left or the right of the cone to score a point. The other player then becomes the challenger to try and win the ball back, and they've got to try and mirror the foot positioning of the player who's now attacking to try and stop them from getting to one of the 2 sides. The focus here is actually to get the players thinking about that challenging for the ball is not just about what you do with your lower body, but it's actually your upper body and how you can use your arms and your torso to get yourself in a position to get in front of a player, around a player, but also apply pressure before you try to make a tackle. So this could be over different distances. It could be shorter for younger players. It could be wider for players that may be up for higher on a skill spectrum. And again, that could be an arrival activity in a small area of your training facility. That then leads nicely into a practice which is like a wave game. And I've done it here based on 2 different elements. So we've got a narrow, long grid here of a 1v1, and we have a short, wide grid here. Now, the difference between the 2, depending on where players may play in their positions, could be a thin, wide channel could replicate defensive players in fullback positions or wingers or wide strikers in terms of the distances they may cover and the width of the pitch that they operate in, as opposed to central midfield players or central defenders who may operate in the centre of the pitch, which is generally wider and a little bit shorter in their shape. So how the practice would work, you would have a player here on the ball, a player would receive the ball in here, play the ball into the defending player who would then give it back. The attacker then simply has to get past the line to try and get into an end zone. Now, the end zone could be a mini goal. It depends on what you have available to you. It could even be a target player based on your numbers. But here I've just used a target zone for the player to try and get into. They simply then would try and dribble to get past into there. The idea for the challenger would be to actually try and mirror the foot positioning initially to try and keep up with the player, make a tackle where possible, utilizing both the upper body and the lower body together, and then on a successful regain to play the ball back to an attacking player on the other side. We want to do that as we don't want the player to just win the ball back and kick the ball out of an area, because we wouldn't do that in a game. We want to make sure that the player can regain the ball successfully, look after it, and either dribble and drive out or play a pass into that area. Once the attacker in here has finished their go, they would simply form the back of the queue and use the second practice, and they go in tandem at the same time as a wave. Now, the difference between these 2 practices is because the area is wider and shorter, it involves a tighter turning circle on trying to regain the ball. And this time, if we regain it, we're going to look to try and keep the ball and either go backwards to a target zone or forwards over an end line. So you may get your players that play in different positions to try both areas. As you go through different age groups and different age stages, you may specialize in terms of wingers or wide players working in a short, narrow zone, which is longer,
to replicate what happens in where they attack and defend in a wide channel, as opposed to your central midfielders or central defenders who work in a shorter, wider zone where they have to be a lot sharper on their turning circle. The progression from here would be where you receive the ball from. So the next part of the practice would be receiving with your back to goal with the defender. And actually, as the attacker receives the ball here, can the defender now work on challenging to win the ball when a striker has got their back to them? So can they work out using their upper body to try and battle for the ball, making sure that they leave enough space behind to defend, try to regain the ball, and then attack. Once they've had a few goes at trying to play with their back to goal, we can then vary the start position from a wide area. So this would then replicate receiving the ball from a wide area on the pitch to a central midfield player. As they receive the ball and then on an angle, can the attacker try with their first touch to move forward, giving the defender a different challenge and an opportunity to try and challenge to win the ball, mirroring the foot position, and this time trying to win the ball back and go towards a target zone either behind or in front. Players have then had an opportunity to work on their upper body in the first practice, then looking at how the lower body works with the upper body in two different zones to try and challenge to win the ball back, changing the direction of where the ball is received from to give them game realistic problems. And to add here would be really important that as the ball comes in, we can change the flight of the ball here. So it's not always going to be where the ball is received on the floor. We may then start to look at aerial passes that come in, or if it's on the floor or bounced, how we work on regaining the ball and finding the right time or trigger to regain the ball. Triggers for young players may be simple as a loose touch, a player facing the other way, or a heavy touch where they've gone too far forward. These would be triggers that we can then use as the defender to intercept, challenge to win the ball back, and then maintain possession to go forwards. This would then lead nicely into a small-sided game, and I like to call this game Regain in terms of adding a point system and a reward as part of the name Regain. So it's a playful tweak on an attacking practice where you would have two equal teams on the inside. So here we've got mirrored as a 4v4 in terms of outfield players with two goalkeepers. And then the players on the outside would be bounce players or floaters, however you want to call them. And we could limit them, dependent on the ability of your players, to be either off a limited number of touches or a limited number of time on the outside. I've been really careful on where I've positioned them. Rather than position them just on the two lateral lines, I put them next to some of the goal lines as well. So as the ball is cut back for a shot, we can try and get in a position to try and challenge for the ball. How this game works, simple 4v4 game. Score a normal goal, however, you get 1 point. However, if there's an interception and we win the ball back, if we can regain the ball and score within 4 seconds, we get 5 goals for it. So we're anticipating and having that idea of wanting to win the ball back early and quickly, with the added incentive of the counter-attacking element to try and regain to score. So here, as we do this, there's a lot of opportunities to try and challenge for the ball, both from wide players, which we've mirrored in the last practice, on the lines next to the goal, which we mirrored on the first practice, and it becomes a more random game. In here, 5v5, you could play 3v3, 4v4. If you have equal numbers, you could also have equal numbers on the outside as the third team. You play up to a certain number, and as we regain the ball and try to score a goal, we're getting the players into the idea of actually we've challenged for it, we've won it, we want to keep it, but we want to try and score goals. Leading us into a small-sided game here, 3-team game, and it's more of an attacking focus here, but we're going to be introducing the challenging aspect, and this game I like to call Regain. Regaining the ball with a reward with more points attached to it to get the players thinking about counter-attacking. So in the earlier practices when we were regaining the ball, we were either trying to go towards a target zone, but here we're actually going to try and score goals. So we want our players to actually be able to be elite in their defending 1v1 situations, but when they win it, can they go and score a goal? So the setup is in here, you've got 4 outfield players on both teams and a goalkeeper, and some bounce players or floaters on the outside. They can be limited by the number of touches or the amount of time they have on the ball. I've tried this with different age groups from foundation phase all the way to senior players, and I've just made little tweaks on the players on the outside to try and make sure that the play stays on the inside. One thing to add is I would take away having a floater on the inside, because we want equal numbers on the inside of the pitch, which is what's replicated on a game day. Normal game, so they'll try and score a goal. So if the Blues are on the ball here and they score, they will get 1 point for the goal. If, however, there's an interception from the opposition here, so the yellow number 7 intercepts the ball, if they can regain and score within 4 seconds, we will give them 5 goals for it. So there's an added incentive or a bonus to try and score goals. All players want to stop goals and try and score goals. So we've got an opportunity here to work on the challenging aspect, random aspect from where the goalkeeper may throw the ball in the air. From the outside bounce or target players, it could be from a lateral position or from the two ends, which mirrors the previous session. And I would play up to a number, it could be 15, first to 15 wins, so 3 regains would get you the win. It gets the players thinking about being aggressive in the physical aspect of winning the ball back, but rather than just trying to keep it, if we can score within 4 seconds, we can then get more goals rewarded.